And for women, the same challenge is there for you, to communicate the message. The other day, I cleaned up all the kitchen when she came home from a trip. I'd spotless, and then after I cleaned it up, I left the glass on the counter. She came in, saw this beautiful kitchen, and she goes, well, who left this glass on the counter? That was not a good big scoring point, women, okay? But fortunately, I understood. I know that that's her tendency. Women can see everything. And sometimes when they're in a good mood, they see the good in things. And sometimes when they're not in a good mood and they're stressed, they see all of the not good in things. So we have good communication. I said, oh yeah, I left that glass there. Hey, did you notice the rest of the kitchen? And she goes, oh yeah, oh, it looks gorgeous. Oh, you always do such a great job. It's fantastic. So she just was able to bounce back. And that's the most important thing about mature adults, is when your partner does make a mistake, give them a chance to do it the right way next time. Just let them off the hook. Let them off the hook. Women, what you don't understand about men is we have billions less neuroconnectors between thinking and feeling. Men have a difficult time thinking a lot and knowing what they feel. To feel and think is a very difficult thing for men. We have to sort of go, okay, I feel, what was I feeling? Let me check out that feeling. Well, it's changed now. Let me come back over here. Then once we figure out what we're feeling, we have to stop feeling on the left side of our brain, go up to the other part of our brain, right up in the front part, and talk. So we have to like figure out what we think about what we feel, then we talk about it, and it doesn't have a lot of feeling by that point. She goes, I don't feel it. Well, I did feel it when I thought about it. Look over there. It's just... And when a man's really in his sort of work mode, that's the left side of the brain. So he's focusing left brain, left brain, left brain. It's very hard for him to access his feelings at that time. And women, you don't understand what it's like to be a man at all. You have the different total, you know, it's interesting. Our brains are very similar. The locations of things in our brains are very similar. But there's some big differences. The first difference, which is sort of politically incorrect to point out, but I like to point it all out, is that men's brains are bigger than women's. Our brains start out bigger. But what they don't tell you usually is that they end up smaller. Men's brains start out bigger and end up smaller than women's. And there's nothing wrong with those differences when we learn to work with them. But if we don't understand them, it really is frustrating, and we can easily take it the wrong way. We can easily feel hurt. And of course, once we feel hurt, then we hold back. And once we start holding back, that's when relationships start going downhill. We feel like, I'm not getting my due, so I'm going to stop giving. And we hold back. And the love goes away, and the magic of relationship can't occur without that love. And just as information changes relationships. Why? Because people realize, when you're done with this talk, this short talk, you'll realize, oh my gosh, that's why that happened, that's why that happened, that's why that happened, that's why she reacts that way, that's why he reacts that way, that's why and how do I contribute to that? You suddenly feel the power again of realizing, how am I creating these problems in the relationship? Because it always looks like they're creating the problems. It would be so easy. From a man's point of view, men are easy. We're just like Fords. The old Ford engine, anybody could figure it out. Now you got all this complicated stuff. That's women. Women are complicated. Men know women are complicated. Women know women are complicated. But men are not complicated. We're very simple creatures. Feed us. And ask us what you want. Just tell me what you want. You see, why do women not tell us what they want? One is they're not taught to do it, and that's what part of my message is, teaching women how to ask, when to ask, the ways that work. But two is, why don't they ask? Because it feels so much better if they don't ask. Remember we went through that whole thing, if you just do it. And she tested you in the beginning. You were jumping through hoops in the beginning. She had all her little test figures out. She says, do I have to ask him? Do I have to ask him? Do I have to ask him? No, he's doing all these things automatically. What's he doing automatically? All the little things. Why is he doing those? Because he thinks I have to do them. But now that we're married, I don't have to do them. So he stops doing them. And now she's pissed off. She refuses. Why do I have to ask for it? I never had to ask for it before. How do men and women cope with stress differently? One of the biggest reasons for problems in relationships. Not because we cope differently, but because we don't understand how we cope differently. That's the whole key, is we just don't understand what we're dealing with. And we don't understand it, we tend to misinterpret it. So how do men and women cope with stress differently? To sum it up very simply, men cope with stress by solving problems. If I'm stressed, okay, what can I do about it? Let me find something I can do, and let me do something about it. The most depressing thing for a man is to think there's nothing I can do to solve this problem. That's why men are always trying to solve problems. And they feel best when they're solving problems. So let's say I'm at work and there's all these problems, but today there's problems you can't solve in one day. There's mortgages and bank loans and things that you have to do. I'm going to wait 6 months for. Maybe tomorrow you got a real estate deal. Is it going to happen? Is it not? So at the end of the day, there's nothing I can do to solve this problem. So what do men become experts at? How do you solve a problem that you can't solve? We've been doing it for time, since the beginning of time. We've got this gene that allows us to do it. If you can't solve a problem, no problem. Forget it. And Plato explained it. He said, because he's a very serious philosopher type, he said that life is a serious endeavor, but there's utility and seriousness in being frivolous. And so one has to have frivolous behaviors as well, because they put you on the right side of the brain. So if you go to the right side of the brain and you're a man, the left side of your brain goes to sleep, has a nice rest. If you're on the left side of your brain, it just gets worn out. But see, women can't leave the left side of the brain. They're always thinking, and they're always feeling, and they're always planning to talk or remembering to talk or whatever. The whole brain is functioning for women in a different way for a man. Now, we can feel sorry for women, we can feel sorry for men, or we can go, how can we support each other? First of all, let me explain what women do to cope with stress. She often wants to talk about it. She wants to talk about all the problems that happen today. And why would she ever want to do that? From a man's point of view, if there's problems and you can't do anything about it, forget it. And that, by the way, is another communication skill, men, you just have to practice, which is if a woman's talking about a problem, remember not to say these words. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Just forget it. Here's something that I tried once. After a stressful day for my wife, I said, honey, don't worry about it. Let's just have sex. Only once, didn't work. She'll talk about some problems, and he'll say, just quit that job. Find another job. It's your choice. Do something else. Does she feel like you're even interested in what she had to say? No. Does she feel like you really care about her? No. And the truth is, man, is she really asking for your advice at that time? I mean, men are actually, on a subconscious level, this is where we're coming from. We give, honey, just quit that job. What do you expect her to say? What a brilliant idea. I hadn't thought of it. I have a problem at the job. I could just quit it and find another job. Well, that's great. I feel so great. No wonder you make all the money. She's not going to say that. She's not asking for advice. What she's looking for is using her relationship as a way to cope with stress.